framework deal over Iran's nuclear program. UN inspectors arrived there this weekend as Tehran begins disconnecting centrifuges and starting the process of dismantling its stockpile of higher enriched uranium. The work is all part of a 6-month tentative agreement with the United States and 5 other world powers. In exchange, the U.S. agreed to give Iran billions and billions of dollars in sanction relief. And one of the things that we're going to have to do now is wait and see if it's worth those concessions. Joining us is Joe Cirincione. He's the president of Ploughshares Fund, and Frank Gaffney, the president of the Center for Security Policies. Nice to have you both with us today.
Thank you, Jen.
Before I get into uranium enrichment and centrifuges and all that really exciting stuff about nuclear technology, let's just start here, Joe. Iran is the #1 state sponsor of terror. Because of what's happening in the country now and this agreement, are we safer today than last week?
We are safer because of they've stepped back on their nuclear program. It doesn't do anything to address these broader concerns that you raise. It doesn't decrease their support for Hezbollah. It doesn't decrease their support for Assad. That's the kind of agreement you might be able to get down the road if this nuclear program works out.
Frank, your thoughts?
Well, I would add to Joe's list that it doesn't actually cause them to step back from their nuclear weapons program either. This fellow Rouhani, who is the guy we're doing the deals with, has snookered us in the past, has said so, that he's bought time for his nuclear weapons program. I think he's doing it again. And at the moment, he's not only saying that it's time to express with action death to America, but he's absolutely determined not to eliminate the infrastructure that his country has put into place for the purpose of getting a nuclear weapon. And indeed, that's what this deal does. It leaves all of it in place. His own chief atomic guy says, you know, we can turn this thing back on, undo everything that is called for into this deal within days. And I think this is a pig in a poke, I'm afraid, and unfortunately, I think that it's going to make for a more dangerous world, not one that's safer by any means.
And Joe, that's not just the Iranians saying that. One of the former UN inspectors for the IAEA, the watchdog group on all of this, who worked in that agency for 30 years, says, you know, it could take Iran anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months to flip the switch from this point on, regardless of what they're disconnecting, and make a nuclear bomb. So are we really getting anything with them turning off some of the centrifuges now?
Well, Jenna, I am very glad that you have Frank and I back on again. You've had us on over the last year or so. So let's track this over the next 6 months, and let's see whose prediction turns out to be. It's absolutely true. This deal is reversible on both sides. Iran could decide tomorrow not to cooperate and turn the centrifuges back on, and we could decide to turn the sanctions relief off and keep more of their money than we already have. The beauty is that what you're seeing is a step-by-step process. If they continue to roll back their program, we continue to release a little bit of their money. That's the beauty of this deal. We're buying their compliance with their own money. It's a fraction of what they need. For example, the international sanctions that we put on with the cooperation of every government in the world has cut Iran's oil supply more than half. They're losing $10 billion a month. We're going to give them about $500 million in sanctions relief for this interim deal. If they want the rest, if they want to get their economy kick-started, they're going to have to roll this program back permanently. They're going to have to accept permanent inspections. All of this will play out over the next 6 months. Let's see how it goes.
Well, and that's what supporters of the plan will say, Frank, is at least we have this 6 months. This is a good trial period. We're at a good starting place. You say what?
Well, I'm just saying that you can't actually undo the damage that's being done right now. We're seeing the regime legitimated. I don't know where Joe's getting these numbers. The administration itself has said the Iranians get $7 billion. Maybe it's their own money, but it's life support for this regime. Others have said it's as much as $20 billion over the life of this program. And here's the kicker. In the meantime, people in the region, most especially, are looking at this and making their own calculations. I think the Saudis, the Egyptians, the Turks, perhaps others are calculating they better get their own nuclear weapons. Joe's big on a world without nuclear weapons. This is not a formula for getting it. And more to the point, both Israel and the United States are going to be at greater risk at the end of this 6 months, I think, than they are now. Well, and that's one thing I'd be delighted to come back and talk to Joe about anytime.
Maybe we can have a wager. No, we can't. That would be wrong. But I'd love to have you both back throughout the next 6 months to see what actually happens. Before I let you go, before we look at a long arms rates in the region. I just want to get your quick thoughts on this. There is a report that the Pittsburgh Symphony is headed to Iran on the 50th anniversary of one of their performances there in 1964. Some are calling it, and by the way, we have one photo of the sold-out performance in Tehran that the symphony did. Some are calling this is a type of diplomacy, the cultural diplomacy that needs to happen in conjunction to what's happening with this nuclear deal. I'm curious your thoughts on it. Joe, you first, and then Frank and Wanda there today.
I think this is exactly the kind of thing we have to do to open up channels of communication. You know, the U.S. wrestling team wrestles Iranian wrestlers. This kind of cultural exchange, what you need to break down the barriers to let each country see the other country for what we truly are. I'm delighted the Pittsburgh Symphony is going.
Frank?
I'm from Pittsburgh. I'm a fan of its symphony. I think this is, again, a mistake. It's part of legitimating this regime and creating the notion in the West that the problem has gone away. Nothing has changed in terms of the threat that Iran represents to us, especially, as even Joe concedes, its support for terrorist organizations that are working against our interests and trying to put Sharia on top of us all throughout the Western world. This is, I think, a mistake and untimely, to say the least.
There's a lot there. It's great to have you both on. You're great together, and I appreciate the fact you always agree to come on, even though you disagree on a lot of these topics. So we look forward to having you back.
Happy to do it.
Thank you, Jenna.
Joe and Frank, thank you.